I'm Johna Peterson. I'm a songwriter. I am also a Mercy Associate, and I was asked by the Sisters of Mercy of the West Midwest to speak about how mercy informs music and music informs mercy for the 2016 Assembly in Chicago. I won't be there. I will be in Switzerland, and so I'm very grateful to speak about that along with the other musicians who've been asked to speak about that. I began to write music in my 20s. I was a Sister of Mercy at the time. I later became an associate. I was influenced by the music of Sister Suzanne Tulin, who is a good friend of mine, and her music was very prayerful. And it was also the first time I heard music that was liturgical and beautiful. And before that, I had no idea how beautiful it could be. My own music, my own philosophy about music is that it begins in silence and it moves people into silence. There are 5 songs I'm going to talk about today. The first is Preghiere, which is the Italian word for prayer, and it is the words of Francis of Assisi. I'm also going to speak about a song called And God Will Bandage All Our Wounds. Originally it was called Mid-November Song. I will also speak about a song called And That Is Why. Words are from the prophet Hosea. And also Song of Catherine, which later became Mother of Compassion, with the words of Catherine Macaulay and also my own words on the refrain. And finally, I'll speak about a song called 10,000 Mercies, which was written during the AIDS crisis in San Francisco. I think writing music is an act of mercy. I think as a nurse that, as a hospice nurse, to do hands-on work, providing tender, loving care to people as they're dying and doing hands-on is without question an act of mercy, but I think writing music is an act of mercy also. I think it provides soothing to people, and I think it also soothes the musician. So we're writing music that soothes other people, and we're experiencing that soothing ourselves. So we're a little bit like David, the soother, who wrote music and played it, and we're also Saul, who's going mad and needs to be soothed. I don't think that songs just emerge. They just sort of are given to you. I think they're a labor. The only time I ever experienced a song that emerged in the moment was when I was in Assisi, and I saw the cross of San Damiano for the first time in the little chapel of Santa Chiara, and I found it very moving because I love Francis and Clare and all of Assisi. Is just, particularly the smaller, the smaller chapels. I saw the cross of San Damiano, and I went up and knelt in front of it, and I read the words, which were O alto e glorioso Dio, illumina la tenebre del cuore mio, which is, Most High and Glorious God, illuminate the darkness of my heart. And at that time, I was feeling a lot of darkness. And so I stayed there, and as I was inclined to move because there was a long line behind me, but instead I just stayed, and when I stood up, the entire song was written. And so I went back to my room and I wrote down on this little card of paper, all the little notes of the song, On the way out, I asked the poor Claire who was standing there if I could come back the next day and play the song in the chapel, and she said, al cuore, in your heart. That was it. So I think songs emerge out of whatever situation you're in. I don't always think that a song arises always out of our goodness or our altruism. It can arise out of, once I was in a conversation and someone was asking, well, where is such and such a passage in Scripture? And I was trying to say where it was from, but they weren't listening to me, you know. So I went to make sure I was right, you know, and I looked it up. I thought, there, I'm right, there it is. And all of a sudden my hand went up to a line right above there, which I had never seen before, which said, you know, God will bandage our wounds. And I thought that was an incredibly beautiful line, but I had never seen it until I wanted to make sure I was right about the other line. And I was working at that time with individuals, or at least one individual, who had significant wounds, and so those words meant a great deal to me at the time. And that song is, and God will bandage all our wounds. So I think the songs emerge out of, or arise out of, whatever our situation is. As a hospice nurse, I once went to a home of a woman who had no interest in Western medicine. And so when I would go as a nurse, she would say to me, why don't you just play the guitar? And most of the time I didn't have time. But one time I had to wait for her doctor. It was a joint visit. And this time she was in a rocking chair and she said to me, just play the guitar, you know. So I picked up the guitar and I started playing it because there was nothing else to do. And I started to sing a verse, and then I hadn't finished the song. So I said to her at the end of the verse, you know, I haven't finished this song, so maybe I should sing you a song I've finished. And she said, no, sing that one over and over. So I did. And she was herself a musician, so she started to sing with me. And as we were sitting there, I realized that all of a sudden the chorus began to change, my melody began to change, her harmony that she was singing with me began to change, and I had written the verses. And her doctor, incidentally, never arrived. So, you know, it's a gift of the day. And that song is called And That Is Why. Wanted to write, at one point, the Suscipe of Catherine Macaulay, which is a prayer of the founders of the Sisters of Mercy. And so, it's in, you know, 19th century language, and I didn't entirely understand it or feel completely comfortable with it, and I wanted to just sit with it and see what it was she was trying to say. So I took the words and I went to the Cistercian monastery in Whitethorn, where I go quite a bit, and every day I would just read it and try and understand what she was saying. And it seemed to me what she was saying was like the psalmist, "O God, you are my portion and my cup." And then the song goes on to, "I am yours for eternity. Teach me to cast myself entirely into your arms." It goes into her words, from the psalmist's words. And then the words go into the refrain, which is my own, which is, "May I breathe in your great mercy. May I breathe out your great mercy. O Mother of compassion, may I rest in you." And so the Suscipe is hidden or embedded in the song, but if one looks closely, you'll see the Suscipe of Catherine. Interestingly, as time went on, I felt that the title, Song of Catherine, was becoming too small for the song. I wanted it to have a larger title, but I wasn't sure what that title was. And I sang the song at the funeral of a friend of mine and a fellow associate, Barbara Alordi. And after that, a woman came running up to me and she said, "Where can I find the words to Mother of Compassion?" And so I changed the title. I started to laugh when she said it. I couldn't even answer her, because in that moment I knew that that was the title, because I wanted it to be the words of Catherine and the Suscipe, but I also wanted to find the feminine face of God. I also wanted to include Kuan Yin and the Kannon Bodhisattva and other traditions. I wanted it to, that had also become my own within that song. I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want it limited in any way. The song that I think most exemplifies the way mercy finds its way into music is 10,000 Mercies, which I wrote in the early years of the AIDS epidemic. I was at that time working at Coming Home Hospice in San Francisco. I had been an English teacher, high school English teacher, and then when the AIDS crisis really hit the city, I had become a volunteer with what was then the visiting nurses and hospice of San Francisco AIDS team. And from there, I became, like many people, a home health aide, and then I became, so basically to care for people. And then, like many of us, we went back to school and became nurses. During the time that I was there, and Coming Home was a 15-bed facility, there were 10 beds for people with AIDS at that time and 5 for everyone else. During the time that I was there were multiple deaths, maybe like 100 deaths per year. So it was really impacted quite a bit because it was such a small facility. But there was a lot of laughter, a lot of joy in that house. And during that time, the 10,000th person died of AIDS. And the number 10,000 was everywhere. At that time, I went out one day, on that particular day, for lunch. And I probably took one sip of coffee and put my cup down, and then I looked up, and across the street someone had written in a bay window, 10,000, just 10,000. So I was thinking of Thomas Hand when he, many years ago, talked about Kuan Yin and the Kana Bodhisattva, and he was saying, you know, how she had these arms, you know, gosh, looking for the suffering of the world. And so I thought, well, I think at this point we need some help. And I decided to go to the Haight, and I bought a statue of the Kana Bodhisattva, or a Kuan Yin. So I took her home and I put her on my desk. And I was really disappointed because I thought she would have 10 arms or, you know, whatever, and oh, she was holding a vessel. After I got over my disappointment, I thought, well, what is in her hands? What's in her vessel? And I thought, well, maybe it's the fire of mercy. Maybe it's the oil of compassion. Maybe it's the oil of gladness, or the water of compassion. And so the song comes out of that experience of seeing the number 10,000. It's it's an invocation. It's a song that really says, you know, Lady of Mercy, Mother of Compassion, Kuan Yin, Kana Bodhisattva, behold the women of our age. And it specified women, even though there were many men who were caring for people who were dying of AIDS. But when the crisis first hit, it primarily hit gay men. And there were many gay men who responded, and as time went on, some of them became ill, and it seemed as though when I was looking around, I saw a lot of women caregivers. So it's an invocation that says, you know, behold the women of our day, behold the cries of our world. Now, you know, the part I find most interesting is that even though the song was written in a setting of sadness and in the setting of a great tragedy, when I listen to it now, it's not that I don't recall that, but it's that I hear the joy, I hear the transformation, I hear the laughter, because I think that those of us who had the privilege of being there, but I think writing music is an act of mercy.